How is it going, Exile? So last night on stream I wanted to test a new Citadel farming strategy, which is based on the fact that you can actually increase the number of fragments dropped by Citadels by increasing the Waystone drop chance on your map. And since we now got new tablets which can give you up to 50% Waystone drop chance, so that's 150% in total if you use 3 tablets, I was wondering how many fragments can I actually get out of my Citadels and how profitable this gonna end up being. And the results were actually quite surprising and much better than I actually thought. So by using the Grand Project tablet to jump from tower to tower, within 2 hours and 20 minutes I was actually able to find 7 total Citadels, and by just running these once, I made a total of 17 fragments worth roughly around 30 divines. But did you know you can actually use the Visions of Paradise tablet to run every Citadel twice? And with that being said, I found that you will always find 2 fragments, but you can also get 3 fragments if you're lucky. So by doubling your odds, you can actually easily make 6 to 10 divines per Citadel. And you don't even have to approach a Citadel farming strategy, right? You can just run the Citadels you encounter on your way anyway, because with the new Atlas, it doesn't really make sense to stay in a certain area. You rather go forward and do your maps, and if you find Citadels on the way, make sure to run them with this strategy to get the maximum profit out of every single Citadel and increase every strategy you're farming with this. It really doesn't matter if you're farming Ritual, if you're farming Abyss maps or whatever, this strategy basically just increases every single Atlas farming strategy, period. So in this video I'm going over the strategy, which is actually quite simple, what tablets you need, what Waystones you need, how to set up your Atlas tree, and how to run the actual strategy, and in the end I'm going to show you the results of some tests I did as well. So if you like my content, make sure to like and subscribe, but now without further ado, let's start with the guide, and we're going to start with how to set up your Waystones and tablets. So as for the Waystone, you want to have a base Waystone which is not instilled with any emotions yet, and it has 110 or 115 or 120% Waystone drop chance. These are fairly common, you can just buy them off the market for like 10 exalts to 20 exalts each, and I'll put the link for the trade in the description down below, but you can also use this from self-crafted maps. This is for example a tab I use to craft Abyss maps, and if I put the Regex here, which you also find in the description down below, as you can see it's highlighting quite a few maps here. So what you want to do with this map, you want to grab one with like 150 or 120 or whatever percent, right? You just want to have it as high Waystone as possible. All the other mobs are completely irrelevant on this one. So you want to take this map, and then what you're gonna do is you basically just gonna craft it up with distilled envies. So you just take 3 distilled envies here and you just instill it. And now the map is going to end up with 205 to 215% Waystone drop chance. I ran those, they all work fine. If you have 205 or 215, it's not a huge difference, but this is basically the base Waystone you're going to run. I also try to run more expensive Waystones on 8 mod maps, so you can get like 8 mod map Waystones like these ones here, which have 230%, and they're going to have 8 mods. They're gonna run a little bit higher. In the end, you're gonna end up with 600, a little bit more percent in Waystone drop chance. This will increase the odds on getting 3 drops for a fragment slightly, but these Waystones are costing like 150 exalts each, so I highly do not recommend to buy these. These Waystones here with like 205, 210, 215% Waystone drop chance are completely fine to run this strategy. And this is just the Waystone you run with the Citadel, and really there's no more magic about this at all. Alright, so what about the tablets? So we basically just need tablets with, 45% plus quantity of Waystones found in map. All the other mods are completely irrelevant. So I found like the 47% ones were kind of the sweet spot. They were roughly like 80 exalts each, so they have 10 usage, so it comes down to like 24 exalts per map, which is, fairly irrelevant if you, look at the strategy overall. You can obviously go for like 40%, which are much cheaper, and they're probably going to end up netting you almost exactly the same result. I don't know how much it takes to drop down to 1 fragment, but you might have a little bit lower odds to get like 3 fragments, but whatever, right? You want to just get 45% plus. I have a link in the description down below for the trade link as always. So if you run a Citadel for the first time, it's not irradiated yet, right? So you're gonna run your map, which has 205% or whatever it's gonna have, right? So at least 205%. You're gonna run 2 of the tablets, which increase the Waystone quantity. and you're going to run 1 Visions of Paradise. So the Visions of Paradise right now is a little bit more than a Divine. You're going to get at least 3 Divines back from the Citadel, so it's always going to be worth it at the current market. So this would be the first time you run it. You run it with these tablets, and then after you finish it, you can run it again. And then you basically just going to use, 3 tablets with quantity of Waystones. And that's pretty much everything about the tablets you want to run in this strategy already. So for this strategy to work, you need a little bit of a different atlas tree. So I would not recommend running this at the same time as another strategy. I would probably recommend just clearing all the citadels, so not running it, but just clearing them so you have access to them, but just leave them there. And then, once you cleared like 5 to 10 citadels or whatever, just swap the atlas tree and then run those. So what you basically want to have is like you want to have everything with quantity of Waystones, right? So these little nodes here are all quantity of Waystones. These are quantity of Waystones. This big node here is quantity of Waystones. That's pretty much all the quantity of Waystone nodes existing here on the tree. And then on top of this, you obviously want to have the more effect of precursor tablets. So you're going to get all the precursor tablet ones here and the increased Waystone. So that's pretty much it. You obviously want to have this one here because you can hit like a big on the modifiers if you're lucky. But this is pretty much the changes to the atlas tree. So pretty much get everything which increased quantity of Waystones, so you can get these high 500% Waystone quantities when running your Citadels. Right, so how do we run this now? So as we have access to a Citadel now, we basically just want to run this with one of our Waystones. So this, for example, is not the best Waystone, it's just a 205%, but we're just going to use this anyway. So we're going to run this with our 205 or 215%, whatever it's going to be, Waystone. Then if the map is, still not irradiated, it's a clean map, right? We're going to use the Visions of Paradise tablet here. These are like 1.5 divines, and the map is always going to drop you at least 3 divines in fragments, so this is always going to be worth it. And then we're going to put 2 of our tablets in here. So these are the tablets with 47 plus Waystone quantity. The other stuff doesn't matter at all. So on the first time we run this map, we're going to put 2 of these. And after that, we can run the map again with 3 of our increased Waystone tablets. So let's start this map now, and we can now run it 2 times. So let's go. And now if we look at it, we're going to have 471 increased Waystone. So this is like roughly the number you will offer, like 470, 480, 490, something like that. If you run it with, the tablet that you can repeat it. And on the second try, you will reach like 550 to 600, depending on if you get a proc or not. But this always nets you 2, and it can also net you 3 drops of the fragment in the very end. So let's run this map real quick, and then we're going to be back with the result. Right, so here we're back with the boss. As you can see, this is still our map here with our 471, and we got 2 Waystones. So now we take one of our tablets again, right? So let's take one of these 2 tents again. And this time the difference is we're going to have 1 more tablet, right? Because we cannot run this again with the tablet. So as you can see, 1 slot now is open because it has been consumed. So now we just add a 3rd tablet here for quantity of Waystones, and we just run it again. And now when we enter the map, you will see that the Waystone drop chance goes up to like 540 or something like that. It's always a little bit different. So as you can see, now we are 545 increased Waystones. If you get a proc, you get above 60%, above 600%. But yeah, so let's run the same map again with 545 now and see if we can get 3 or 2 fragments out of this. Alright, so now we ran the Citadel second time with our 545 Waystone drop chance. So let's see how many he drops this time. And there you go, we still got 2, but there's a good chance you get 3. You're not always gonna get 3, obviously, but in the end still, we got 4 fragments here for the price of pretty much 1.2 divines extra for just getting this. So basically we doubled our fragments, so at the current market this will be roughly like 6 divines for like, just running the Citadel twice. So highly recommend, just doing this on your Citadels. It's going to be more than worth it, at least with the current market as it stands right now. So if you want to reach your citadels fast, I recommend to use the Grand Project tablets. So the Grand Project tablets has one use, and if you use it on a tower map, it's basically going to make all the maps accessible within the range of this tower. So for example, let's say we want to reach this citadel here, which is, in the mist. We can use this tower and it's going to make it accessible. And then usually if you want to go for more citadels, this is going to give you like at least, 1 or 2 map jumps, or sometimes you can even directly do the next tower. So after doing this tower with the Grand Project, I will be able to use this tower, then I will have another radius of this, and this already brings me like pretty close to this citadel, right? Then I can use this tower again, then I could use this tower. So overall, if you use the Grand Projects, which are, right now 70 to 80 exalts each, you can reach those citadels really fast. But how does that work? You basically just use a tower, and you can use, any random map. Doesn't really matter what map you use. And then you just use the tablet in. You can use other tablets, obviously, but you just gotta use this one. And if you run the tower, it's gonna, make everything around the tower accessible. And then we go from there. Alright, so there we finished the tower, and now if we look back to our atlas tree after finishing the tower, you can basically see that all maps in the range of this tower get accessible, so that means we have direct access to this citadel and we can run it. We almost have direct access to this tower, we would need one more obviously, but then from this tower, we could go on jumping to more citadels.